everyone, it's Gabby. I hope you're doing well. Today, I'm very excited. I'm going to share with you my favorite mysteries, thrillers that I've devoured. I really wanted to do it when we were more into a kind of spooky, cozy season because those are books that you're going to love reading under a blanket with a few candles and more of a dark ambiance. So here we are. Finally, there are a few. When my sister saw the pile, she was like, those are just your favorites. And yes, I have way more books, but these are just some that I absolutely love. First of all, we have Room by Emma Donoghue. I hope I'm saying that right. I've read this one in the summer, actually. I think it was more 4 or 5 years ago, and I absolutely loved it. It's quite something. Jack is 5. He lives in a single locked room with his mom. So basically, the story of a mother and her son. You read the story through the 5-year-old's eyes, and they're actually locked up, and we don't know really what it is. We just know that it's a room because that's the size of it, and that's it. And you really feel so compelled to know more. I've never read a book like this one, and it was so interesting, and at the same time, it's quite stressful in a sense. I'm not going to say any more about that, but it's very haunting at the same time and very gripping. You just want to know what happens next. I loved it so much. So the next one is an author. It's Cara Hunter. It's not really a book. It's kind of more of a series of books because these kind of go together. You follow a few detectives through their cases, and it's so nice. So there's an order, but I actually read the second one first, and I loved it. It's in the dark. Incredibly good. What I love about this author is that, first of all, you follow a few characters, which I find super interesting, but also since they're detectives, you really follow the case through a few people's eyes, and I find that's really gripping, and you really get a different perspective from each character. But also I really love how she really depicts characters that are very different and very deep. I really love Cara Hunter's writing. I think that's also something that I find really important for me when I read books, is that I really want to feel drawn to the storyline. I love a page turner, and these are very much it. My mother loved them so much. Like all the ones that I'm going to talk about, my mother has read them as well, and it's 100% Kristen approved. Next up, we have Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. So interesting. I lent this one to my friend Lori because I think I read this book 2 or 3 times. It was very stressful for me to read it. I'm going to read you the back. Jack, handsome, dedicated lawyer, loving husband, and Grace, elegant, consummate housewife, prisoner. Everyone knows a couple like Jack and Grace. He has looks and wealth. She has charm and elegance. You might not want to like them, but you do. You'd like to get to know Grace better, but it's difficult because you realize they're never apart. Some might call this true love. Others might ask why Grace never answers the phone or can't meet for lunch without Jack, and why there are bars on one of the bedroom windows. Sometimes the perfect marriage is the perfect lie. This was such a nice read. It was a real page turner. It's quite crazy. You have a few flashbacks in there that really help you understand how the couple met and the beginning of the relationship. You understand a lot about how some people can really hide who they really are, and I could not put this one down. I remember one night going to bed at like 2 o'clock in the morning because I just had to keep reading, and I was like, no, just one more page, and well, it was 2 o'clock when I stopped. Now, one of my favorite authors, Jewell. I just adore her books. I think I've read pretty much all of them, but I really wanted to share with you the 3 that I absolutely fell in love with and could not put down. So the first one I read was Then She Was Gone, and that was a few years ago. So basically, a girl goes missing. She was 15. Her mother just has no idea what happened to her, and 10 years later, she has not given up hope. Then she meets a 9-year-old that looks exactly like her daughter, and that's when she really kind of starts to really want to get those unanswered questions answered. And it's really interesting because you really get to see the story through the mother's eyes, and you can feel how desperate she is and how heartbroken she is that she has lost her daughter, that she has no idea what happened to her. And you know, it's scary. You're like, oh my god, what if I have a daughter? And my mom actually told me that it was very difficult for her to read it because since she has 2 daughters, she's like, oh my god, I just could really really feel her emotions and her despair. And then I read I Found You and I loved it so much. Again, so interesting. Two women, stories that are super different, amazing. And the most recent one was The Family Upstairs, and once again, incredible storyline. You kind of get one story that was a few years ago and another story that is right now, and the two kind of go together. I don't want to say more because it was so interesting and really not what I expected, which I absolutely love when it comes to thrillers, when you have no idea what's going to happen. Amazing. Once again, I love her writing. I think she's really found a way to make each story super compelling. Then we have Rosamund Lupton, Afterwards. Incredible. There's a fire, a mother and her daughter are caught into the fire, and basically the story follows them when they are in the hospital in their spirit form, and you have the point of view of the mother, and it's oh, that was so hard to read, so compelling. You felt like what's going to happen, you have no idea. I just such a good read. My mother also had a hard time reading this one, but it was just so good. She said herself, I just had to keep going. I just had to. It was hard, but I just had to. A new author that I just discovered is Steve Cavanaugh. I first started with 50-50, which is super interesting. Basically, a father is dead and his two daughters are suspects, and you get the point of view of the lawyer Eddie Flynn, and you have the perspective of another prosecutor, I think it is, and from one of the sisters, but you have no idea which one it is. You just know that it's the murderer. During the entire book, you kind of go from it's her, no it's her, no it's her, well I have no idea. The most recent one is 13, so you have a ruthless prosecutor, a brilliant defense lawyer, a defendant with a secret, and the serial killer on the jury. Incredible. I read this this summer. Absolutely adored it. My mom loved it so much. The writing is amazing. I really like the character of Eddie Flynn. Then we have another of my favorite authors, Liane Moriarty. I read all of her books, but I would say my two favorites so far are Big Little Lies, a classic if you've seen the series. So good, incredible. I love that you get the perspective of three different characters. I always find that super interesting to see different sides to the storyline, but also their different point of views depending on their history and their way of life as well. And the most recent one is 9 Perfect Strangers. I didn't think I would like this one because a lot of people were a bit disappointed, but I actually really liked it. During some moments it is a bit slower, but I really loved, you get the point of view of the 9 strangers in the retreat, and I particularly love Frances. I think I really fell in love with that character actually, and I kind of grieved her after finishing the book, which is quite crazy, but I loved it so much. I thought it was really good and I could not put it down. Now before that one, I read Gillian Flynn's Dark Places. I'm not gonna lie, I had a bit of a hard time loving it at the beginning because the character of Libby Day is not very much, you don't really like her. She's a bit dark and I have a hard time when I don't love the characters, but the story was incredible. Basically her entire family was murdered, and she survived, but they thought her brother had killed the entire family, and now there's a kind of kill club, a secret society that are obsessed with murder, and they raised the doubt that maybe her brother didn't kill her family, and so she goes into kind of this search for who actually is telling the truth, and that was just so interesting. Next up we have The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. You might have heard of this one. There's actually a movie that was made from the story, and I really love this book. It's basically about a woman who is agoraphobic, and so she doesn't leave her house and kind of spends her days kind of spying on her neighbors, to be honest, and one day she witnesses what she thinks is a murder, and so the story follows the few days after that, and it's very good. And then the last one is The Wife Between Us by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pakinen. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering this. Amazing. When you read this book, you will make many assumptions. It's about a jealous wife obsessed with her replacement. It's about a younger woman set to marry the man she loves. The first wife seems like a disaster. Her replacement is the perfect woman. You will assume you know the motives, the history, the anatomy of the relationships. You will be wrong. Incredible book. So here we are. These are my favorite thrillers, and I really hope you read some of them at least because they're so good. So let me know in the comments if you do, and I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!